In the shadows where the veil thins, truth whispers, unseen forces stir, and the unknown calls your name. Here, in the depths of the metaphysical, the darkness is not to be feared. It is to be understood. But beyond the night, there is also light. For every shadow there is a glow. For every question, an answer waiting to be found. We walk the line between mystery and revelation, between fear and enlightenment. Welcome to Lumino and Umbra, where we embrace both the seen and the unseen, the dark and the divine. Delic Octon, your guide on this journey beyond the veil. Together, you will discover the secrets of the metaphysical world, step by step, shadow by light. Now, here is your host, Delic Octon.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are together with the second part of the Egregore architecture subject. It's so nice to see you all in here, and if you haven't watched the first part of it, I definitely suggest you to go check out my YouTube channel. On the live section, you can see the Egregore architecture subject with the first part of it. This is the part 2. And if you're familiar to the subject, I highly suggest you to watch this one as well. But if you're not, please check out the first video of it. Thank you so much for you all being in here. So first of all, I will start with the disclaimer that I have. I want to be clear about a few things. The information shared in this podcast is based on a variety of sources, both verified and unverified, and is presented for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is absolutely not my intention to influence or change your personal beliefs in any way. Your spiritual journey and the conclusions you draw are entirely your own, and you have the sole right to your own judgment and discernment on these topics. Please be aware that I cannot be held responsible for any personal interpretations or comments you may have regarding the subjects discussed. This podcast and any accompanying videos are intended solely for an adult audience of 18 years or older. If you're under the age of 18, please exit this podcast or video now. Thank you for your understanding and for respecting this disclaimer. Now, let us begin. So last time we actually talked about the psychological aspects of the egregore subject, and it was literally blurring the things out in a way I actually have called as mind fucking. So yes, it was, and if you would like to check that video out, I highly suggest you guys to do that as well. So now we are going to be talking about some brands, some occult stuff, esoteric stuff, and all that. I'm trying to find where I was left off. And this part is actually the most interesting part. This part is, I would say, this is the most spiritual and esoteric and occult part. Is because we are going to see a lot of the things like based on the secret societies and how they are actually creating their own egregores. and how brands are creating their own egregore gods, I would say, okay? Or how some brands became like a egregore. So first of all, let's start talking about the occult part of the egregore. So in the first place, if you're talking about the occultic and esoteric parts of the subjects, we can actually ask right away the question is, do society groups like Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, etc., have their own egregores? So people who study or participate in esoteric traditions sometimes say that groups like Freemasonry or the Rosicrucianism or the historical Illuminati have their own egregore. However, the meaning of that claim depends a lot on which perspective you take, either cult or esoteric part or psychological part, as we had talked in the previous part of it. So the occult and esoteric part is the part that today we're going to be diving deep into that. And in occult and esoteric traditions, like especially within Western occultism, an egregore is often described as a collective psychic entity created by a group through shared rituals, symbols, and oaths, emotional investment, and repeated attention over time. Because the organizations like Freemasonry or Rosicrucian groups have strong symbolism, initiation rituals they have. They also have long traditions that are coming for like long years. And also they have very tight group identity. As we all know that Freemasons, if they get out of the Freemasonry, or if they reveal the secrets about the Freemasonry, we have seen a lot of people actually ending up somehow committing suicides, or somehow being found dead or something like that. These things can happen. Some esoteric writers say these groups develop powerful egregores that guide or protect the order. In this worldview, the egregore acts like a collective spiritual presence connected to the group identity. So from the psychological Jungian interpretation, as we had talked about it before, from the perspective of Carl Jung, this same phenomenon would likely be explained differently. Jung might interpret it as a shared activation of archetypal symbols, collective psychological complex, and a strong form of group identity and myth making. So this connects to his ideas of the collective unconscious and archetype, which I have talked about these in the previous video. I would I would suggest you to check that video as well. The rituals and symbols used in secret societies often deliberately invoke archetypal themes like initiation and rebirth, hidden knowledge, transformation, and the wise guide. As I have talked about this wise old man or wise guide archetype in the previous video of the Egregore architecture subject, as well as the Merlin podcasts that I have done in 2 different parts. Mainly that gives us the wise old man or wise guide archetype. And these themes can create a very powerful shared psychological atmosphere, which people may interpret as an egregore. And also, there is a sociological explanation. It's not just psychological part of it. So from sociology or social psychology, the idea of an egregore can also be explained through concepts like collective consciousness, social identity theory, and stuff like that. So groups with strong rituals and narratives develop shared meaning, loyalty, and identity, and coordinated behavior. Over time, the organization may feel like it has its own spirit or personality. For example, people often say things like the spirit of the order, the will of the lodge, or the tradition guiding us. So these expressions resemble the idea of an egregore, actually. Whether such groups have egregores depends on interpretation as the sorry, I need to put this on. Here we go. The perspective as like the occult traditions, they're coming as they are having the perspective as a real collective psychic or spiritual entity created by the group. And Jungian psychology is saying a shared archetypal structure emerging. Psychology from the collective psyche, and social psychology is same as a group, a strong group identity and symbolic system shaping behavior. So actually, I would like to share with you guys a little historical detail about this. So many secret societies intentionally use symbols, rituals, and mythic narratives precisely because these tools strongly activate the human psyche. Some historians think these practices were designed to create the powerful sense of a living tradition or presence within the group. which sounds very similar to the egregore concept again. There's a strange overlap between egregores and modern internet culture that I have talked about the internet culture as well. So as we see that in here, there are differences about the occult egregore and the internet equivalent, okay, which are this that we're going to be talking about it. So some researchers argue that certain online communities or memes behave almost exactly like digital egregores. I have talked about these digital egregores a little bit, actually a little detailed about it in the first part of this video. So I suggest you guys to check that one out as well. You guys can understand it much better than this. Some sociologists, media theorists, and internet culture researchers have noticed that certain online phenomena behave very similarly to the occult idea of an egregore. They sometimes call these digital egregores or networked thought forms. The idea isn't supernatural, it's a way of describing how collective attention online can create something that seems to develop its own momentum and identity. So let's actually look at this closely. Memes. In the very first part of this subject, I have talked about the memes. I think, if I don't remember wrong, Richard Dawkins was talking about that. Yep, right here. Richard Dawkins was talking about that, and in the very first video I have talked about it. So if you guys are interested in that, I highly suggest you guys go check that one out as well. It is a continuing part of that video. So the concept of a meme was introduced by Richard Dawkins in The Selfish Gene. A meme spreads between people the way genes spread biologically. Online memes replicate rapidly, mutate as people remix them, compete for attention, and sometimes disappear or go viral. Because they spread through collective participation, they can feel almost like a self-propagating cultural entity, which resembles how occultists describe egregores. Online communities create shared identities. Platforms such as Reddit, 4chan, and Discord allow thousands or millions of people to share symbols, repeat inside jokes, reinforce group beliefs, and coordinate behavior. Over time, a community can develop what feels like a collective personality. People often say things like, the internet decided this, Reddit loved this, the fandom wants that. We all know that. In reality, also, my boyfriend is sharing the links of my podcasts on the Reddit a lot. So yeah, sorry Reddit people if you guys are watching me, but that's the part of the subject. I had to put it in. So psychologically, that's similar to describing a group mind, right? It's like when we are saying the internet decided this, Reddit loved this. Psychologically, that's similar to describing a group mind. So narratives that group, the guide group behavior. Certain internet myths or stories grow through collective storytelling. I remember this actually back in like way beginning of the 2000s. MySpace, well, like end of 90s, beginning of 2000s, MySpace was actually pretty popular. So on that MySpace, I remember this one girl actually shared a song that she was singing, and all of a sudden we started hearing about that depressing, super depressive song. The story was just like this. Oh yeah, she lost her boyfriend and then wrote this song and started singing like that, and everybody believed in that for like years. I'm not kidding. I think right now I'm 37 years old, so I think I have learned the truth about that. I think I was like 34 or 35. I have came across with this news that it was actually talking about, and it was saying that, oh, it was not actually what we thought it was. And I'm like, so what was it? I clicked on it and I have read about it. I was like, that's just boring. It was just a regular song that she shared, and she didn't even have a boyfriend at that time or some shit like that. It was just so stupid. But the internet people created such a story like that from the beginning of the 2000s. Right now, like I'm talking about around the time that like 4 years ago or like 3 years ago or something like that, 2-3 years ago, I have learned the truth about that story. It's such a shit, you know. Like I'm pretty sure you guys have one of those stories like that everybody had believed in, but then after that, like you have learned the real story. It was just like something super simple, nothing really sad or different than what it was in reality. Yeah. So the narratives that guide group behavior. And in reality, I messed it up. Okay, now I'm back. Certain internet myths or stories grow through collective storytelling. A famous example is like the Slender Man, which this is something that I have never believed in. And this is actually really interesting. I don't know if you guys believe in the Slender Man, but when I have heard the Slender Man about it first time, I think I was like, let me think about it. I think I was like 27 or 28 years old, and based on a child video. It's like those stupid things like the Charlie calling thing that they do. And it was like literally based on something like one of those videos that I have seen it. I could not believe in that. I was like, Slender Man, what the fuck is that? I was like, I never believed in that. But anyways, originally Slender Man created in 2009 on Something Awful forums. The character evolved as thousands of users. They added images, wrote stories, created videos, and expanded the mythology. The character eventually felt larger than any individual creator, which is exactly how egregores are described in occult theory. And to me, also, like Bigfoot, Slenderman, or Charlie that they do with this like two pencils on and whatever. I never believed in that, for example. But there's another way also to explain the egregore. Collective attention creates real-world effects. So some internet phenomena begin influencing real behavior. For example, movements like Anonymous, Hacktivist Collective, right? Developed around the Guy Fawkes mask popularized by V for Vendetta. And now they're not the only one that they use that mask, but nowadays people who don't want to reveal their identity are using that mask a lot by using the voice changer as well. And we see that a lot on the internet, like those people, right? Especially they do TikTok videos. Recently, we see them a lot about like talking about the Epstein videos, or we see them a lot about the conspiracy theories and stuff like that. The symbol, this V for Vendetta symbol, spread online until it began guiding coordinated actions in the real world. So this resembles an egregore in that no single leader controls it. The identity exists mainly through collective belief, and people act on behalf of the symbol. So it also became the symbol of, in a way, if I'm not wrong, it became the symbol of the anarchy. I remember that as well back in the day. That was something really dumb. And also, the algorithms amplify these collective entities. So, based on the modern internet platforms, they amplify certain ideas through recommendation systems. For example, Facebook, for example, YouTube, for example, whatever platform that you go on, TikTok, Pinterest, this, that, nowadays is everything based on those algorithms. And these algorithms are amplifying these collective entities also based on this opinion. Trending topics, viral hashtags, or fandom movements can suddenly gain massive attention. And this creates a feedback loop. So people notice a trend, and then they participate. And then the algorithms boosted, and the trend grows stronger. So the result can feel like a self-sustaining digital organism made of attention. It's a very interesting subject though. And here's my cookie came here. My little cookie came here. Come here, buddy. Oh, I got a little bit of cookie in here. Little purr machine. Oh, okay. Yeah. So also there is a question that comes through with it. Why researchers compare this to egregores? The parallels are striking as we see it on the screen that I have put it on. Like the occult egregore is created by collective belief, but the internet equivalent is created by shared participation. Hello, would you like to come sit down with us? Well then, come here, come on. All right, there you go. Just sit there. Got the little cookie in here. And the occult egregore grows stronger with attention. The internet equivalent goes viral through engagement. The occult egregore develops identity and symbols. Internet equivalent goes with the memes and avatars and slogans and stuff like that. The occult egregore influences group behavior. The internet equivalent is based on the online trends and movements. Yeah, it is a very interesting subject. So when some scholars say digital egregore, they mean a self-reinforcing cultural entity formed through network attention and participation. And if we look at this with the from the deeper psychological angle, from a Jungian perspective connected to Carl Jung, as we have talked in the Part 1, the internet may simply accelerate collective archetypal expression. Shared myths, heroes, villains, and trickster figures spread globally within hours instead of centuries. Nowadays, we are, of course, in that technological or very like light speed technology time or era that we are experiencing. Maybe it's gonna be even faster than this next year or 2 years later. So that's the reason why I cannot say a whole lot, but yeah, like look at it. These are now going through so quick, right? I was just looking at the chat. I'm sorry, I just realized it. Hello, Strawberry Field Fairy. I am not doing the readings today. So yes, I have the Fairy Oracle deck, but I'm not doing the reading. You can check that out on Thursday. And I don't have a dog. I have a black cat. And his name is Cookie. So all these shared myths, heroes, villains, and trickster figures spread globally within hours instead of centuries. So in that sense, the internet might be functioning as a massive amplifier of the collective psyche. Also, some researchers are pointing out as some online memes develop consistent personalities. People describe them as mischievous, chaotic, or wise. These personalities resemble classic archetypes like the trickster, which appears in mythological figures such as Loki. That's why some theorists say internet culture may be accidentally recreating the same psychological forces that produced ancient myths. Some occultists claim certain famous internet memes actually became modern egregores intentionally created by online communities. So what is the story behind this idea and based on which occultists? There is a very strange modern occult story where some people claimed internet memes were intentionally turned into egregores. The idea mainly comes from communities influenced by chaos magic, whose practitioners treat belief and symbols as tools that can shape reality. The wildest example involves a meme frog, or the meme magic story that if we would like to give, this could be like Pepe, Kek, and a digital egregore. So the Pepe the frog is actually an egregore based on this story, okay? The central meme in the story is Pepe the frog, originally created by the artist Matt Furry in a comic series before becoming an internet meme. I'm sorry, I just need to check this. Okay, we didn't come there. We're coming to the brand part of it, but hang in there. We're almost done with this. Matt Furry in a comic series before becoming an internet meme. Around 2015-2016, users on forums like 4chan began joking about something called meme magic. The claim, which this is interesting part of it, partly ironic, partly serious, was that posting certain memes repeatedly, focusing collective attention on them, and spreading them across the internet could manifest real-world outcomes. So in this part, I would like to make you guys think about the manifestations again, because there are actually affirmations that we see on Pinterest, TikTok, Facebook, this, that. They're all over everywhere. And these actually start manifesting the real world outcomes. This idea resembles the occult concept of an egregore, a collective thought form created by many minds. So the cult of Kek, let's talk about that. The cult of Kek, some users created, or the Kik. Let's see. I can fix this. Here, the cult of Kik, or Kek. The cult of Kek, the mythology, like some users actually created a semi-ironic internet religion called the cult of Kek. Mythology worked like this. The word Kek, which is an internet slang for laughter, appeared in the memes. People noticed there was also an ancient Egyptian frog-headed chaos god named Kek. Because Pepe is also a frog, users jokingly said Pepe was an avatar of Kek. So this led to a strange mythology where Pepe memes were seen as magical sigils. Posting them was a kind of ritual, and viral spread meant the god of memes was working. And chaos magicians took the idea seriously. Some occultists connected this to chaos magic theory. One example is John Michael Greer, who discussed the phenomenon as an example of internet subcultures accidentally creating an egregore. So he argued that thousands of anonymous users collectively repeating symbols and creating mythologies around them and acting with shared intent can function similarly to group magical rituals, except the ritual space is the internet. In chaos magic, a collective thought form created by many people can evolve from a sigil to servitor to egregore. So some occultists found this fascinating. But why? For chaos magicians, the internet looks like the perfect environment for thought forms because it provides millions of participants, rapid, simple replication, which is memes, emotional investment, feedback loops through algorithms. And in traditional occult theory, you might need a ritual group, repeated ceremonies, and symbolic imagery. So online, a viral meme does the same thing automatically. That's the reason why this is so fascinating for some occultists. Sorry. Here it is. So why the story became controversial? The idea became tangled with politics during the 2016 United States presidential election, when Pepe memes spread widely in political internet communities. Some participants jokingly claimed meme magic helped manifest political outcomes. Most observers, or including the researchers are observing this, considered this internet myth making mixed with trolling, but it still became one of the most bizarre examples of digital folklore. So, why scholars think this matters? Anthropologists and folklorists say the phenomenon shows something deeper. The internet may be accelerating myth creation. In the past, myths and gods evolved over centuries, but now online, a meme can become a shared myth within weeks. Not even weeks. Nowadays, it is just taken few hours, really, or maybe just a few days. That's all. So the digital egregore idea is sometimes used as a metaphor for how collective attention can create powerful cultural forces. Some occultists and internet communities believe memes and massive collective attentions can turn into something like an egregore instantly. Not a literal spirit necessarily, but a self-reinforcing cultural entity that behaves almost like one. Some chaos magicians now practice something called pop culture magic, where fictional characters like Batman or Cthulhu are intentionally used as symbols to create modern egregores. So when we look at something actually interesting, because all these are actually related with the brands that we will be talking about it, because some brands are becoming egregores as well as following this subject. So what's the theories some occultists have about corporations like Disney or Apple functioning as egregores? How and why? And some occult writers and cultural theorists propose a very unusual interpretation of large institutions. They argue that major corporations can function like egregores. In this view, a corporation is not just a legal or economic structure, but a collective symbolic entity sustained by belief, attention, and ritualized behavior. This idea mixes occult theory, sociology, and psychology. The egregore idea applied to corporations, and in occult terms, an egregore is created when many people repeatedly focus attention and emotion on the same symbols. Some occultists argue that global corporations unintentionally meet all the conditions that create egregores. Millions of people emotionally invested, shared symbols and logos, repeated rituals and participation, and collective storytelling. So because of this, the corporation develops a powerful symbolic identity that seems to act like a living entity. So if you're talking about some sort of conspiracy theories, what corporations come in your mind the first? What ones are coming the first in your mind? Really, I'm just wondering, because now I will start talking about Disney, which is very well known and connected with a lot of the conspiracy theories, as we all know so far. The company Walt Disney Company is frequently used in this theory, the myth creation. So Disney produces modern myths through films like The Lion King, Frozen, Also, we remember the modern myths like that are talking about the Hercules, or what are the other ones? I need to remember. Gosh, I cannot. When I was writing this down, I was remembering everything. I was like, oh yeah, this one too, this one too, this one too. But now it's like poof in front of the camera. It's all gone. Sorry. But also, Disney is using the symbols. The Disney Castle logo, Mickey Mouse imagery, these are the symbols of Disney, right? And ritual participation is the most interesting part because as we all know that the Walt Disney World parks, like the theme parks, Disney parks, are actually perfect places for the rituals for these specific things. Okay, so theme park pilgrimages to Walt Disney World, fandom culture, and repeated viewing of films across generations. Now let's think about it. I think I was like 8 years old when The Lion King first came out. And ever since then, I have watched it like many times throughout all these years. And my son grew up, and when he was growing up, I have watched it probably 1 more million times too, like that. So yeah, it's like really, this is an egregore language. This is an egregore thing. In egregore language, this constant reinforcement feeds the symbolic entity of Disney. So it's like the same thing that we see the Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse everywhere. Or we see the Donald Duck. Or we see, what else we see? Frozen. We see the Little Mermaid. We see Moana. They all actually became the part of Disney, and it's actually feeding that logo is an egregore. And there is another example that we have is Apple. Another corporation sometimes discussed this way is Apple. Apple. Just like the apple that we know, apple, like in your pocket as your phone or your laptop, MacBook, whatever. Observers point to unusual elements of brand devotion. The symbolic icon is the bitten apple logo. This is representing the apple that is bitten by Adam, which Eve told Adam to eat the apple, according to the mythology, right? And so this is the near mythic status of Steve Jobs. And also, if you guys check the dates of Apple is actually doing the product launches, those dates are specific dates, okay? And which you guys can see that if you guys make a little tidbit research about it, this is something specific. Why? In those exact day and time, as we have talked about it on the Saturn video, I guess, if I don't remember wrong, certain planets are aligning in a certain way, and that is actually the ritualizing all these events like this. And this also gets global attention during the announcements. Apple users describing themselves as Apple people, right? To critics and occult theorists, these resemble religious structures. So, sociological, if we look at it from the perspective of sociology, corporations can look alive because they function as collective actors. Relevant ideas include collective consciousness and brand community. A corporation becomes a shared narrative system where millions of people coordinate beliefs and behaviors. This can produce the feeling that the corporation has a personality, intentions, and the spirit. Jungian perspective of this is, sorry, I need to do this. Oh, I went too far. Here it is. The effect might occur because corporations activate archetypes from the collective unconscious. So, for example, the corporation like Disney is actually creating the archetype of storyteller, magician, child. And Apple is actually creating the archetype of the rebel, visionary, and creator. In a way. Have you guys ever thought about it this way? It's very interesting, no? And marketing often intentionally uses archetypal imagery to trigger emotional engagement. So when we look at it, why occultists find this idea strange but plausible, occult theorists note that traditional egregores were formed through rituals, rituals, symbols, myths, and shared identity. Modern corporations do something very similar. Branding replaces magical sigils, advertising spreads symbols, fan communities reinforce belief, and repeated purchases act like participation. So they argue corporations are unintentional modern egregores powered by consumer attention. There is a deeper cultural observation about it. Some media theorists think this phenomenon shows that modern society has replaced mythological institutions with corporate ones. In earlier eras, temples and religions organized shared meaning. Nowadays, like today, global brands produce narratives, symbols, and identities. So the corporate egregore idea is partly a metaphor for how collective belief now organizes around brands instead of gods. Yeah, this is another mind-fucking twist right here. And as we see it on the screen, the symbol or logo is the magical sigil actually, but the corporate version is the brand logo, right? The rituals is the ceremonies based on the traditional egregore idea, but for the corporate version of it, that we can talk about product launches and purchases. So the myth of the traditional egregore is based on religious stories, but corporate version of it is based on movies and brand narratives. Initiates and the traditional egregore devotees are initiates, but corporate version of it is the fans and consumers. So another brand that I'm thinking about it right now is Microsoft. Microsoft is using the same way like the Apple does, like using the certain days, certain times, and they use certain music or I don't know, like some sort of like background music and things like that they use. And when you actually check that song out, and there are softwares that you can actually use for those songs to reveal what it is going on in the background of that song, like what frequency and what they say, what they mean. Actually, you can actually expose the truth about that song, which people have done this to reveal the Illuminati truth about it. Okay, back in the days, I remember that. I still know that there are people do this, but when some of these brands are using like specific songs like that, those specific songs are based on a certain frequency and they say certain things, and that actually advertisement is going on and on and on, let's say, platforms like YouTube or TikTok or anywhere. And everybody is listening and listening and listening and listening. That's actually getting you there. And that's actually turning into the egregore as well, if you guys have paid attention about it. So there is another twist is coming actually. So some philosophers argue that corporations already behave legally like artificial persons. They can own property, make decisions, and persist for centuries. That's why some thinkers say corporations may be the closest real-world equivalent to egregores that modern society has actually created. Some historians think ancient religions themselves may have functioned like egregores, created by early civilizations. That theory connects anthropology, Jungian psychology, and mythology in a very, very interesting way. So, when we check this, like let's say, how did the ancient civilizations create their own egregores and believe as religions? Based on this, which ancient religions have created by ancient civilizations in the history? As I have mentioned it in the part 1, when I am talking about the ancient religions, I am not talking about the Abrahamic religions. It's because any of the Abrahamic religions are not having an idea of like an egregore, okay? So we are talking about the very ancient times, like the Sumerians, ancient Egyptian times, and that. So let's talk about that. The idea that ancient religions might function like egregores is mostly a modern interpretive theory, not a historical fact accepted by mainstream historians. It combines anthropology, sociology, and psychology to explain how collective belief systems form and gain power in societies. So, ancient civilizations didn't intentionally create egregores, but their shared myths, rituals, and symbols could produce something psychologically similar to what occult traditions call an egregore. So let's see how these ancient societies could create something like an egregore. Let's go step by step, I guess. The first step, shared myths emerge, right? And early societies developed stories explaining the world, creation myths, nature spirits, and ancestor legends. These myths were repeated through storytelling and ritual. For example, myths around gods like Ra, Zeus, Poseidon, this, that, whatever you want to think, or Isis, or Hermes and stuff like that, okay? So all these gave meaning to natural events. And the step 2, actually the ritual, is reinforcing the belief. Religions created repeated ceremonies with the sacrifices, seasonal festivals, temple worship, and initiation rites. Sociologist Emil Durkheim argued that ritual strengthens collective consciousness. When thousands of people participate in the same rituals, they experience a powerful sense of shared presence or sacred power. And now, the third step is the symbols concentrate the attention. Religions use symbols like temples, statues, sacred animals, and sacred texts, these symbols can act as focal points for collective emotion and imagination. For example, pyramids and temples in ancient Egypt, or statues of gods in Greece, or sacred fires in ancient Persia, or whatever you would like to say. Like these examples are going, there's a lot, right? From an egregore perspective, symbols anchor the collective thought form. And what do they need for the step 4? Of course, the institutions sustain the belief. Priests, temples, and traditions keep the system stable for centuries. Religions become embedded in politics, law, and culture, which makes the entity of the religion feels permanent and powerful. Ancient religions sometimes discuss in this theory. Modern occult writers sometimes interpret several ancient religions through this perspective. Again, in this interpretation, not historical consensus. Ancient Egyptian religion is something. Ancient Greek religion is something. Like we can talk about the religion centered around gods like Ra, Osiris, Isis, Amun. Sorry, I got cat hair. And huge temples, priesthoods, and daily rituals lasted over 3,000 years, creating an extremely strong collective belief system. Yeah. The same way like the ancient Greek religion too. So the occultists sometimes say this sustained attention could produce a powerful religious egregore. And ancient Greece, we actually see the gods like Zeus, Athena, Apollo, Poseidon. Myths were reinforced through temples, festivals like the Olympic Games, epic poetry such as Homer's works. So these stories shaped Greek identity across many city-states. And when we look at the Mesopotamian religion, do I have anything else after this? Oh yeah, right here. Like the Odin. I have talked about the Odin as well. Mesopotamian religion is based on Marduk, Ishtar, Anu, Enki, Enlil, and temples called ziggurats functioned as centers of ritual and power. For example, Norse religion. We can talk about Odin, Thor, Loki. These myths spread through oral storytelling and heroic sagas. But when we look at the psychological explanation, again, based on Carl Jung, these religions might arise from shared archetype within the collective unconscious. And we see the common archetypes appear everywhere. Sky Father. And we can talk about the sun god. We can talk about the mother goddess, we can talk about the trickster, as you can see that on the screen. For the archetypes, we can example the gods as like Zeus, Odin, and we can also archetype of the water god, right? And we can talk about shoot, I have said his name and I have forgot it. Poseidon, sorry. And sun god is like Ra, Apollo. So we can actually talk about the mother goddess Isis or Ishtar. Trickster is Loki. In the Mesopotamian version of it, if I'm not wrong, it was Enlil. Some say Enki too, but there are differences. So because of these patterns repeat across cultures, Jung believed they reflect deep structures of the human psyche. So one thing now, why the egregore theory is actually fascinating people. So when millions of people believe the same myth for centuries, the religion becomes a powerful cultural organism that shapes morality, law, identity, and politics. To believers, it feels like a real divine presence, even if psychologists interpret it as a collective mental construct. Ancient religions were not invented as egregores, but their structure is actually coming like this, as shared myth, ritual, symbols, and collective belief. So these can produce something that behaves very similarly to the egregore concept. So there is another actually thing that we can talk about it, why almost every civilization independently created extremely similar gods. For example, we can talk about the Zeus in ancient Greek culture, and we can talk about Juno in ancient Roman culture. And it is just going like this. There's a lot like that, right? Sky fathers, mother goddesses, tricksters, dying and rising gods. So this pattern appears in cultures that never contacted each other, right? The explanation for that gets into Jungian archetypes, cognitive science of religion, and evolutionary psychology, and it's one of the most intriguing puzzles in human history. Yeah, it is a very, very interesting subject. There are a lot of twists that can make you guys question a lot of things. And yet, it is, in a way, I think this is just my theory, by the way. I'm not trying to influence you guys about it, but at the same time, I'm just thinking to myself about this. When I was making this research, I actually realized about one thing, that eventually in the future, people, the politicians, countries, or presidents, or religional or religious people that can influence people can actually use this as a weapon to kill the God belief in people's head. Isn't it so interesting? Because you can actually do this. I would like to know what you guys are thinking about this, but in a way, by using this egregore idea and theory, actually you can break the idea of believing in God, and that kills the religions and God idea, and it kills everything. I'm not judging atheists in here at all, because I have atheist people on my channel as well, which maybe it's going to be hard to believe, but at some point I used to be an atheist too. So that's the reason why I am just saying this. Like, it's so interesting that it can kill the religion and God idea in people's heads. It's so interesting. You can do it by using the egregore idea, I think, which is not so hard. What do you guys think about it? Let me know. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for being in here. I would like to let you guys know that for the upcoming spiritual podcast, I already have put the subjects on my YouTube posts that you guys can vote. And if you guys would like to help me about it, I'll be really appreciated. It'll be so much easier for me if you guys can do that, because it's always helpful to see what you guys would like to know, what you guys would like to learn about. And that actually helps me to improve myself even more about those subjects. Sometimes when I'm making the researches, actually I'm coming across with the stuff that I never even heard of it, or never even have seen it, or I am actually learning something like completely new like that. So that's really helpful. Yeah, we are done with the egregore idea. Thank you guys so much for being in here with me. I really appreciate it. And Thursday, I will be doing the live reading, and I still have the live reading link on my YouTube channel under the live section. If you guys can check that out, you guys can actually click the notify me, and you guys can actually get the notifications right away about it. Thank you guys so much for being in here. I really appreciate it. I would like to see you guys in the upcoming podcasts and the readings. Have a good day or have a great night wherever you guys are at. Bye bye, you guys.